Hi. So, getting going. Chris, how do you get things going?
So like a project?
Anything. Maybe applying for a job, starting a book, writing that album.
Yeah.
All those dreams. How do you actually get going?
Well, I'll start with getting inspired by something. Reading a quote for me, or a concept, an idea. And then I would just note that on Notion on my phone, and eventually after weeks or months, some kind of thing will form there.
All right. So this is a starting process which might take months.
Okay, so this is like this might be the pre-start.
Yeah.
I'm just realising.
How about narrowing it down and going, I want to do this, and in 3 hours' time, this is going to start.
Yeah.
Maximum 3 hours, ideally maybe even 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
How do you get the idea straight into getting going and action?
Okay, now I feel on the spot. I like this. So I will probably write down a list of how it should go, so I can visualize what I do first, what I do next, and really what the outcome is. What's the point in it? What do I want to get from it?
Okay.
So have the end in mind. But for me, that's kind of a top-down sort of way. When you said it like that, I felt the pressure to like top-down, use the brain and make a list.
Yeah.
For the stuff that I start, it will come from a bottom-up place often.
Yeah.
I'm doing quite creative things, so it's often kind of like emotional. It's inspired stuff that's
feeling the urge to make something.
Yeah, it's kind of coming through me a little bit, not to sound too arty. So if that's the case, I will just make sure I'm in touch with that sort of waves of what I want to create. So I will balance that to-do list kind of top-down structure with that kind of energy of putting something into the world, making the world a little bit better, or just that natural energy of creating.
All right. And do you find that these ways lead to starting things frequently, easily? Or?
No, it's very much the artist's kind of way, where the inspiration comes in different times. Sometimes I'm just depressed. or the energy's not there. But the more I kind of work with it and know my way, the better I can sort of create more and more and be with that flow.
So it's a way you use, but you don't find it overly reliable.
No.
To get going.
No.
Can I try a different analogy on this?
Yeah.
How do you start a jigsaw?
So I will find the edge pieces.
There we go. This is kind of what I've been circling around. But why do you find the edge pieces? What is it about the edge pieces?
Well, I feel like if you've got a piece that has two flat sides, then you've only got to line up two other sides.
Exactly. You're cutting down the number of decisions, right?
Yeah.
You're cutting. It's doing the choosing for you.
Yeah.
So as with many things, especially in this day and age, where there's positives and negatives to everything, it's so wonderful. There's so much choice and so much content, so many ideas, so many things to learn. But there's a FOMO aspect which builds in, like, I can't start because what if I need to learn all this stuff first.
Yeah.
I need to read all of that and watch all of this first.
Yeah.
And that FOMO aspect means that I've got more choices to consider before I can get going. But actually the pieces of the jigsaw, why do we all start almost innately from the edges, is because it cuts out some of the choices. There's constraints built into it.
Yeah.
So that constraint gets you going. And this is all I'm talking about, is just how to get going. Actually continuing the process and refining it, where you end up, that's a totally different question.
Yeah.
But until you get going, you can't even enjoy that middle stage journey. But that first bit, I find personally, when I look back at stuff, it's just been constraints have been massively helpful. In weird ways, there's been constraints which I didn't even know where they'd take me. I bought a guitar pedal so complicated that it turned me into a bassist. It was insane. You needed a university degree just to figure out how to program this thing. It could do anything. You can play the guitar and it sounds like someone singing scat. And it was amazing. I played a lot of weird Radiohead tunes on that scat mode because it's a funny contrast. But it was too much. I couldn't make music with it. And something inside of me said, just chuck all of this away, even the guitar. Just start again with bass. And I'm a much happier bassist now.
I like that. Yeah, and for me, like, sometimes the constraint is the thinking about it. If it's a job I've got to do or a task I've got to do, sometimes it's just easier to get started. And in a way, I'm constraining myself from thinking about not doing it and thinking about all the ways to do it and just starting.
Yeah.
And that is a gift to yourself. If you can do that for some things you need to do, just do that.
Absolutely. Part of the constraint, which I found for a lot of admin paperwork, really simple, it always starts with super easy questions.
Yeah.
Like just your name, your address, some parts of, past history. And, before you open up an application, for example, there can be this, I'll set aside a whole afternoon or a whole day to do that in the future when it's all going to fall into line. But actually, if you just make a start and say, today, just like the jigsaw puzzle, I'm not going to venture into the middle and sort it all out, but I'm going to get that irritating part where I've got to just put down my details. Because when you've got the inspiration and the whole internal encouragement to I'm going to totally nail this application now.
Yeah.
You don't want to be spending that typing in your address. So just get going. Say, all I'm going to do this afternoon, small constraint, I'm just going to fill in the personal details, have a quick look at the questions, and maybe jot down one or two things.
Yeah, I think whatever the thing is, like putting pen to paper is a great way of getting out of your head of thinking about it and just start doing something in the physical world. Or it could be, depends what the task is, maybe it's organising something physical in the world, tidying up something, just to start doing something around the task. And
exactly.
Yeah.
This analogy is even better than I thought.
Yeah.
Aside from cutting down the choices, there's an aspect of doing the easy pieces.
Yeah.
Filling in your details, sorting out your workspace. These are the easy pieces. They're not the centre of the jigsaw.
Yeah.
That is much more intensive. But you do still need to do the easy pieces at some point, so you might as well start there.
Yeah.
And then you've made a start.
Yeah.
Ah.
So you're making me realise how important starting is for me. And when I talk about flow in these videos, how we have ideas and then get them onto paper, then onto this video, and then get them out onto YouTube. That's like water flowing and not having a dam. Like not putting stuff out and just building up videos, that's like the water's just building up.
Yeah.
Or having ideas and having nowhere for them to go, that's a dam. But now we've got a process, we have this flow of water. And everything in my life that actually is functional has a kind of flow, or I work with the process, because I do find it hard to start new things.
Absolutely. I mean, in a way, you won't need to ever start again once you've got a structure in place.
Yeah.
Because you can just keep coming back to it, like we do.
Yeah.
Come back here on Fridays, do this. Out goes the content.
And when I say that sort of, I visualise that water as like a dam and it flowing and going out to sea. Is the brain like that? The neurons like that in a way? The pathways.
In terms of,
once you start, you have a sort of path for a flow for your project or your work, and that's a pathway in the brain. And once that's sort of unblocked and you know it works, it's more easy to go into that pathway than the brain sitting there going, which neuron do I?
Oh, it's definitely So there's myelination, which is something we keep coming back to. Myelination is essentially once you have a certain thought enough times, or you have a certain behaviour or movement enough times, the brain will almost fast track through those connections. And what it does is it insulates those nerve pathways with this fatty substance, so that the electricity goes through them quicker.
So it's actual physical change.
It's actual physical change. And what's interesting is what you just mentioned about the flow, is that whilst it's doing that process, it needs time to set that up. And whilst it's working out, what is repeated patterns, there's all these other options of neuronal connections still kind of vying for competition. Once you've got the myelinated pathway, it actually means that you're thinking about it less.
Yes.
And so now you've got space to do the thing,
that resonates,
and new things come up.
Yeah.
And in a way, a lot of us will have experienced that with driving a car. When you first learn how to drive a car, you're thinking about every single movement. There's so much, so intense, and oh my God, you might crash. And there's all these things to change with the gears. Eventually, once you've myelinated it, and part of it's gone to a different part of your brain altogether, which is the cerebellum, and that does all these refined movements where you're not conscious of it at all, really. Once it's gone into that pathway, now you can drive, and instead of being paralyzed by all the different things you've got to do, you can listen to an audiobook. You can have an argument with whoever sat in the other seat. There's loads of different things that you can focus on at the same time, because the myelinated stuff is going on in the background.
That makes sense. That's fascinating.